Anybody home? Look who's here.
All
Shannon
right.
Ewing, what's up? How you doing? You bring the party? You bring Jason in here?
Yeah.
Okay. Who's here, man? We just gotta warm it up, Joe. Get everybody in here. Contact whoever to contact. And cats want to be in this one. So make your call. Shannon, do me a big favor and get everybody on the horn because they might want to be around this one. Um,
Yeah. Hey, everybody. How's everyone doing? We got a couple special guests tonight. Got Armel, got Alton, got Mr. Russell, and we have Chris up here. Tonight, we're going to be talking about CQB and what it means and what it is. And if anybody has anything to add to it, just drop your questions inside the chat. We'll try and answer it. And we might open it up to let some people in, talk about their experiences and everything else. First, we'd like to start some introductions. Byron, you'd like to introduce yourself, give a little bit of background?
Yeah, Byron Russell, former SF guy at Fifth Group. I was in a SIF from, I don't remember from, until 2009, a long time. It was that long ago. Actually, I was what they call a plank holder for A15. Metric shit ton of time in Iraq and Afghanistan with CQB and stuff like that. Also, the owner of Black Armor Guns and part owner of Graybeard Syndicate, just so you know, in case you want to look those up. No big deal. And that's it. I pretty much just talk shit with Joe when he comes into the store.
And then Chris, and we also have Dudley from MD Arsenal has joined us.
What's going on, everybody? How you doing?
What's good? What's up, Dudley?
Yeah.
Not too
Chris?
Yeah. Name's Chris. I spent the last 18 years in Fifth Group. Spent a little time at Slick there as an instructor. Regular ODA, I'm like Byron there. So a lot of my time was doing bid and coin, things like that. So I've got a lot of experience training the CQB all around the Middle East there, several countries. Qatar, Lebanon, Jordan, Iraq, Afghanistan, just name a couple there. Retire at the end of this month. Finally, a little over 20 years. And I work with Byron and the owner of Free Customs. I dabble in a little bit of everything. I make 1911 grips. I make furniture, Cerakote, and I do gunsmithing.
All right, cool. And Dudley, can you introduce yourself?
Good evening, everybody. So, Dudley with Maryland Arsenal. So, I am, we're a gun store range in Hagerstown, Maryland. Former Marine, Presidential Guard. And after I did my stint there, I went down to 1st Marine Division and did some deployments overseas, Bosnia, that sort of thing. We were primarily helo company, so we did a bunch of CQB stuff, like lots of things like that. I am far removed, unlike you guys, not doing it every day. After I did that, I did some private contracting stuff, security stuff. Then I moved over to the IT world, which I do now along with the other stuff. So not so my CQB stuff isn't so much as up to date as you guys, so more historical knowledge for than the practical stuff, the day to day for now. So that's pretty much it for me.
Yeah. Cool. Appreciate it. Hey, thanks for everyone joining us. I guess when we started about it, like, what's your guys' definition of CQB? Because like I've heard a lot of stuff. It's clearing rooms, doing this, doing that, but like what can we agree is CQB from your three individuals' experience and what you've seen out there in the real world?
Well, CQB is more of like the term, close quarter battle. The key word is battle. Okay. It is a distance thing, meaning buddy of mine, Sularu, which I mentioned earlier, former sniper, he used to tell me, he used to make fun of these fucking assaulters and their 7-meter gunfights. So that is CQB, it's like a 7-meter gunfight. You know what I mean? Different from CQC, close quarter combat. If you think of close quarter combat, you think of these two hands right here being used. Does that make sense? The difference between the two, close quarter battle being a battle, just like you would see, between two armies, and close quarter combat, which is the use of these. Now, that doesn't mean one doesn't drift into the other and back and forth, if you know what I mean. Like Tony Pryor. I don't know if anybody here knows Tony Pryor or heard of him. In Afghanistan, we were on a mission with CQB, and he got into a position where he was by himself in a room, and it turned into CQC with him. And because they were jumping on him like monkeys all over the damn place, and he was tearing them off of him the whole 9 yards. And if you're in CQC using your hands, sometimes you'll be getting to your gun the fastest you can get to your gun, then it turns into a CQB type scenario. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yep.
I heard that story. Didn't he dispatch a couple of dudes with either
Yes.
an axe or something like that?
I think it was a 2x4.
2x4. That
Yeah.
makes a difference.
He hacksaw Jim Duggan on him. Hacksaw Jim Duggan, baby.
Hey, Dudley, what's your what's your definition, Dudley?
So same thing. So I feel like it's it definitely has to do with the environment, and it has to do with, I think, and I know we had talked about this before. Like, I want to know if everybody agrees that CQB can happen in any place, not just a room or a house. Like, it
Absolutely.
can take place in other places, right? So I think there's a lot of I don't know about misconception, but I think people have, everybody has their own opinion that if you don't do it, if it happens on a bus or it happens on a plane, it's not CQB. It has to happen in a room. So I don't agree. I think it's anywhere that you are involved in that, like you said, that battle that takes place in that close confined space. That's not like a wide open battlefield or ground, something like that.
I mean, a mount environment, that's CQB.
Right.
You know what I mean? Even though you're between buildings, it may be an open space between areas. That's still CQB. So it's not necessarily, really defined to a space. It could be spread out, like you said. It could be linear, bus or aircraft.
Yeah.
It could be linear too. So absolutely right.
Yeah. Chris?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with both of them. It can happen anywhere. I know our previous conversation on Friday that we had, we gave the example of you're in your vehicle, somebody comes up to it.
Right.
You maybe CQC until you can get out of that vehicle and then obtain your weapon. And now you're in CQB where, you're still in a wide open space, but you're kind of confined until you get out in the open. It's just kind of an example we gave the other day. But yeah, I agree. It's an ever evolving situation, and it can happen anywhere with anything, and it can go from one to the other very quickly. If you get disarmed, now you're CQC. If you can get your weapon, you're back to CQB kind of thing.
Yeah, that's cool. Now I was just thinking about like when we start talking about spaces and everything else, when we say close, like is that for ranged weapons, are we talking 100 meters and in, as far as I can hit you with my rifle, or does it have to be, a city block, or like how, because I spend a lot of time going down these rabbit holes in YouTube, and I see, so-and-so is teaching a course, and, this is the way to do it, and this is the only way to clear a room, and this is how you run the rabbit. I got to get to the X and get off the X, and like, where the hell is the X? And, like getting back to the basics when you start talking about, your distance, your speed, surprise, violence of action, stuff like that. So like, at what distance do we go from CQB to something else?
I believe that changes, and it's really dependent on the situation. If it's daylight, if it's not, all that matters. It also matters too, a couple other things. Is it simply building clearing, like you're going in and say, hey, we need all these guys in Fallujah. We need all these guys out of here. That
Right.
CQB is the alleys. The CQB is, the little courtyards, 100 yards. And then there's hostage rescue, completely different thing. Okay. And that's a point target. And that CQB doesn't happen until you get to there, that kind of thing. So it's really depends on the situation. I don't think there's a defined space for that.
Right.
I just know that it's in a space that is not normal battle drills, is what I would say. Like normal battle drills, like wedges and all that kind of stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, you can set up teams and you can like have areas of fire like that, sort of like in a wide open kind of space. I agree with that completely.
Yeah.
Like it's
So one
definitely
of the
bases.
one of the things I wanted to some of the things that I want to address, right, is, and I've been speaking about this to a lot of people, the skills that's developed from CQB, the practical applications to like the common pedestrian, like the everyday person, and how you can apply it, whether it's in your house for a particular burglary or home invasion in a public area, supermarket, parking lot, any type of crazy environment. For those of you who don't know, I didn't meet you, Byron, but my background, I'm a CB. So I used to be, but still am. But a lot of the things I've done was a lot of force protection and physical infrastructure, slowing down, catching a threat before, detecting a threat immediately, slowing them down, controlling the violence.
Yeah. Well,
Stuff
I
like
think
that.
I think
What's
with that
what's
right
up?
there, right? Because if your assaulters or whoever's doing it, they're on the offensive, so you're already behind. You're already at a deficit. So remember, the three pillars of CQB is surprise, speed, and violence of action. So even though you build up all these barricades and everything else, who's to say that I'm not going to bring a trash truck in there and jump out of trash cans? And I
So
still
it's
Been there.
it's
I'm
kind of
sorry.
like part of the job to have a little bit foresight.
Yeah, but I mean, so remember,
It's part of the job. In reality, it's part of the job to have a little bit of foresight. And I understand that most of the threats that the regular everyday person is going to come across isn't going to be sophisticated as a U.S. hard target, or some of the enemies aren't peer enemy or aren't near peer
But right
combatant.
now, we're just trying to
like that.
define what CQB is and some of the tenets and principles of it, and then
Right.
you can take that and apply that to different aspects.
Right.
Whether you're taking down.
The principles are the same, though, Joe.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
The principles are the same, and the techniques, the protocol, and the procedure should be. It can change, but the basis is still the same.
Yeah. So, guys, speaking of that, what are some of the TTPs or techniques, tactics, techniques, and procedures you've seen evolve throughout your careers? I know all three of you guys spent a long time and seen it, go from where we had 20-inch M16 A1s to now we got Mark 18s, to now we're flying drones in the buildings and stuff like that. Dudley?
Yeah, so this is very interesting, right? So for me, and so I come through have come full circle. So like I said, I started out as a Marine Corps. I was an infantryman. So, we were on the ground doing those sort of things. We had M16A2s. We were, busting in doors. We are definitely the old school until today, recently, where I'm a cybersecurity engineer and I'm working on weapon systems. So I'm, talking to these guys as they're doing other things. They're like working with the guys that are on the ground that are doing it from that perspective, right? So I can see, I'm watching the missiles go in, I'm watching them do the predator feeds, I'm helping them do sort of the tactics and stuff on that level, and things have come so far. So like, from, long weapons, and I used to hold I still hold I'm not gonna lie, my M16 by the Magwell, where everybody's now out in front now, and that's the kind of thing so that's how far back it's come. It went from me to now these guys have, we're running 11.5s and we're doing, all that sort of thing, which is really interesting for me to see. Like I said, it's definitely changed. I mean, you guys are more advanced with that stuff, like doing it on the ground right now than I am. So I'm more behind the scenes now than I was before. But
Hey, I was studying the history of it, right?
mm-hmm.
The term CQB was coined when?
Oh shoot, I have no idea.
Well, I want to say,
1943.
yeah, with Douglas Fairbairn, he was in Singapore. He taught like the OSS hand to hand and everything else. But I mean, when you think about it, we've been doing CQB for a while. We've just called it different things. We just didn't put a name.
Yeah. That's what I wanted to lead to next when you was talking about the TTPs have changed, right? And when you look at the history, think about it. They were using close quarter battle. It's been since the beginning of warfare, pretty much.
Absolutely.
Yeah, think about using slings, bows, muskets.
Yes.
Yeah.
And more recently they still call it Battle Drill 6, I believe, isn't it?
Yeah,
Battle Drill
6.
Yep.
Everybody has a drill for that.
Mhm.
Some do it a little differently. The drill may be massaged a little differently depending on the unit. Okay, but it's still Battle Drill 6, it's been going for a minute. How do you go into any house? Let's go back to the Revolutionary War. How do you go into any house to clear a house out? It's close quarter battle, right?
Yeah.
Whether you're in there with little pistol muskets or you're in there with fixed bayonets, what they do.
Yeah. Could you explain what Battle Drill 6 exactly is?
Oh, that's a good one. Yep.
It's an infantry battle drill. I can't explain it exactly, but it's a
Best you can to a layman.
to a layman. It is a battle drill to where it's the use of a grenade, the use of in 25th ID. I remember seeing the saw gunner going in first, during that battle drill. But I don't remember the drill itself that well because I left the infantry in 91, and I don't remember doing that drill since then.
Anybody else? Dudley, you seem to know something about that infantry stuff.
Yeah, so I think so Marine Corps, we call it something a little bit different than Battle Drill 6. I'm trying to actually think. Like I said, it's been a while for me to what we actually called it, but it's very similar. It's just a style. Oh, there's Gary and Rob right there.
Hey, I'm sorry to interrupt. I want to introduce Rob, aka Kick Up Dust. Hey, Chris and Byron, this is the gentleman. He mag dumped a Barrett 50 cal. So and that's Hat Creek 6 Hat Creek, Dust, Byron, and Chris. I'm sorry, Dudley, go ahead. My apologies.
No, you're good to go. So no, it's just like how you would clear a room, right? So what that methodology would be, like she said. So like your stack, you're throwing your grenade in, your flashbang, and then how you enter the room. But like I said, the Marine Corps we didn't call it Battle Drill 6. I don't remember what exactly we called it, but it's just that sort of that methodology of how it takes place.
Yeah. And I want to say, Byron, if I'm not mistaken, Battle Drill 6 Ranger Handbook. That's where we got that from.
Yes, I'm sure. Yeah,
I was just
it's not necessarily just in the Ranger Handbook. The Army has that as battle drills. Period. All infantry have battle drills.
Yep.
All support units have battle drills. For whatever they work, whatever classification they work in, they'll have battle drills. And if they need to go on patrol, they study up the SOPs for battle drills for the infantry. There's a standard battle drill for each one of those, be it a bold flanking maneuver, if you make contact, stuff like that. So, it's not just a Ranger. I'm sure it's in the Ranger Handbook, but it's not just in there. Other units have it also.
Yeah, we just call it different stuff though. That's all.
I know. One of the reasons why I said that, one of the reasons why I even mentioned it, because I see I watch a lot of YouTube. I'm a sit in the office type of dude and ride around the truck type of dude and look at YouTube all day. So I look at a lot of YouTube and I see the guys doing their thing, and I see a lot of the training guys doing they jump out of the helicopter type stuff. So yeah, all the crazy, for the snapshots or for the clicks type thing. And I see like when they're training, it seems like I was like, what the hell are they doing? Everybody laying down the same line of fire in the same daggone. What are they doing? It's like the same direction. It's like you got a 4-man team. It's like who's covering the right or who's covering the left? Who's covering, who's covering the 12? You know what I mean? Like everybody running in the room to shoot the target. I'm like, huh?
Yeah. Hey,
It's
so
like who gets the most hits? It's like who can shoot the most
so
from what I'm seeing on YouTube. It's like
so
it seems
moving
crazy.
on. Yeah, moving on. Let's talk about the 3 rules of CQB, everything else, and kind of ties in what he's talking about. To me, it looks like a unorganized fire drill. Don't want to get shut down or anything like that, but like kind of explain it from your guys' experience, like 18, 12, 3 dudes walk in the room, whatever, and it's like all hell's breaking loose. Like what all is that? I don't know. Hey, Hat Creek, what's up? What's your take on that? The 3 rules.
I mean, that's the standard that was given down by the people that started breaking down the whole CQB thing, in kill houses and stuff of what we see nowadays. I mean, that really dates back to the SAS. A lot of that stuff was brought over, as far as I know, to the tier 1 units and stuff that, and it was developed and kind of refined there, I believe, at least in my opinion. I think it's one of those things where we see it getting better and better. I mean, from what I knew from when I was in to where it's at now, I mean, I kind of like Dudley. I mean, this thing far surpasses anything that I was ever doing. It's these tier 1 units. I mean, the whole GWAT era of folks has really stepped it up and really taken it to like a whole nother level.
Agreed.
Because you have not just the room clearing that they do for like hostage rescue and stuff like that, but now you've gotten into the urban warfare piece of it, which I don't really call that CQB. I call that CQC because it's really close quarters combat at that point. And that's, I mean, by the definitions for me, that's how I see it. I'm sure people here on this panel may have a different opinion of that, but to me, that's what it's all about. Those three paramount pieces: surprise, speed, and violence of action. That's, I mean, they're the tenets of CQB. I mean, that's exactly what it is. It's going fast and going hard.
So we're going to be honest with ourselves too. Once GWAT started, before GWAT, there was only a handful of units that were doing CQB.
Right.
Period. A handful, right?
Yeah. Other than that, it was mount training.
I was in that unit, in those units. Once GWAT started, those same units were so freaking busy. They just can't go out everywhere and do everything. So
Right.
you had artillery units doing it. Freaking, I'm not saying the band, but I'm just saying units were not typical infantry or they were combat arms, don't get me wrong, but not typical guys who go out and do that kind of work. They were doing it too. And it was close quarter battle for them also. Just because they didn't wear a fancy badge doesn't mean they weren't doing it. Does that make sense?
Right. Yep.
And again, my definition of CQB is anything that involves a firearm. I'm just making it simple. CQC is anything that involves your hands. It's the two differences between the two. But those guys, on the regular, going out in Iraq, streets of Iraq to hit, hey, we're hitting this target today, and they're artillery guys. They got to do the same stuff. It is rocket science, but they were doing it just as much as anybody else.
Yeah. Hey, so speaking on that, I know during the early days of GWAT and everything else, I think there was like I'm not going to say a rift, but there's like a little territorial conflict between SOCOM and SF units and regular military units trying to do CQB and everything else. And they wasn't like really trained up for it. And they kind of shifted into that mount stuff and everything else. I mean, and again, like Hat Creek said, those definitions of CQB is different for everyone. Hey, I'd like to introduce Dude Knowledge. Again, prior military, and Dude, if you can introduce yourself, a little bit about yourself.
So I go by Dude Knowledge, part of the Tactical Turkeys. My dude's over here. Uncle Joe's up top. I mean, mainly, I just like to learn nowadays. I like taking as much information as I can. But my thing is that's been common, right? Nowadays, since the whole big explosion of Hollywood and stuff, is the different terminologies when it comes down to CQB. There's a lot of misconception when people start talking about CQB. Especially once you start talking about principles of CQB, right? Now, for the most part, I'm sure I can safely say that all of us here has at least done a few sessions, if not a few seminars involving shoot houses, right? So I guess if we did, depending on what branch you're in, you're going to have different types of SOPs and TTPs. However, your basic principles are still going to remain the same. And that's one thing that we all kind of, I guess, have evolved out of as far as understanding, just because of the hearsay and a lot of the pitter patter that goes on where, you hear one thing and the more repetitive that you hear about it, the more you start believing in it. But at the end of the day, right, what it boils down to is essentially having the same principles. Doesn't matter what branch you're in, if it's Leo, Mill, et cetera. I mean, what kind of principles did you guys have, training CQB? That's one thing I kind of want to, understand.
That was a question.
Yeah, it was a question.
Oh man, I mean, I don't know, Chris. Like, what was some of the things you did on the teams and everything else to get your guys up, to take it from the, I grew up watching John Wick and all other movies, and I just joined your team. How did you get me in line and be like, you do that stupid shit, you're gonna get killed?
So, having a lot of young guys and being the old guy for a while now, like the last deployment I had was over in 23, I think April 23, where I spent 6 months in Lebanon teaching CQB to several different units over there. And one of the things we always tried to express to them was, the surprise element is only good if you actually have surprise. Unfortunately, a lot of these areas they were going into, early warning, things like that, what was it, straight out of Compton? You got the guys up on the rooftops, shooting off fireworks when the cops are coming through, that kind of thing. It wasn't quite that bad, but, cell phone technology, things like that. You're going to use that element of surprise really.
Right, you're losing your relative superiority.
Yeah, and at that, you have to go back to speed, violence of action, getting to
right
the area, and then getting in there as fast as you can, which unfortunately some of our guys in Lebanon, they found out by not getting into that house as quickly as they could. They unfortunately took a few casualties. It was a little bit disheartening because I literally just got done training that particular part of the unit. So those were guys I just left. And they were going back out operational again. But having action, getting into the building, not only makes you secure from the outside, being in there, but you've got to have that violence of action going in and that speed to maintain that security. If you can catch them off guard, they can't get to their guns, kind of thing. And there were several instances in Iraq where I'm going into a house as quickly as possible, and I make it into a room, and the two doofuses that are in there, they've got AKs sitting next to the couch or leaned up against the couch that they're sitting on. They can't get to them because I've got a gun barrel in their face now. So that speed and violent action was definitely there, but I also had the element of surprise by an unfortunate, I think it was like a 6K offset. So walking in under the cover of darkness, under nods, things like that, you have that element a little bit better. Yeah, sticking with the rules here, in this particular section, when you lose one, you got to fall back on the other two immediately. If you lose two, you got to hope and pray that everything else falls.
Yep. Hey, Chris, I was thinking about, I was literally thinking about when you got off the call the other day, and I was like, wow, that's really dope. Could you talk about, like, in an event, like an example like we just gave, like shit went bad and you want to egress? That part.
Overwhelming force, we were always taught SF, it's 3-to-1 kind of ratio is what you want to go up enemy wise, or at least that's the lore that I always heard. I had a situation, thankfully, where I was being overwhelmed by enemy forces, I guess I should say. Byron may have a little bit different take. He's got a lot of different experience there doing that. But when you go into a room as number one man and you're confronted with three people, I always knew that those guys behind me were immediately behind me, kind of thing, because that's what we trained. You're making his decision and going. Your number two man's reacting and going the opposite direction to start getting fields of fire in the room. Your number three man's coming right down the middle as those two are breaking the doorway. If you can get to that point in your training and you're comfortable with everybody on your team doing that, of having that gun potentially go off right next to your head, it's a bit of a shock whenever you first have it happen, just because running these SOCOM breaks that we had, they stuck in that instance, going off right next to your ear, no matter what the ear pro is.
See, that's the weird part about different shot shoot situations, which is what he's referring to. The situation that he's talking about is a shot shoot situation. Now that works in a lot of times when you only have one team inside a building, but once you start working with multiple teams inside a compound, then you kind of your whole TTP starts to change a little bit, because it's no longer just a shot shoot, because at the end of the day, we're taught to always do your best to, well, not do your best. You have to do your absolute utmost, cross your T's, dot your I's, to avoid blue on blue, to avoid any blue on blue.
Yeah. So, hey, I got a question for you, dude, Knowledge. And are you talking about from a military standpoint or from a Leo standpoint?
Both Leo and military. That SOP stays the same with shot.
We've had the conversation before about, like, CQB is CQB, but then we kind of talked about it where for the military it's kind of evolved, because like Leo is always going out with preservation of life, bringing the felon back and everything else. A lot of times, from my understanding, and you guys can correct me, Dudley, Chris, and Byron, sometimes you got that target list, and it was kill, capture, kill, or just hit him with a fucking T-lam.
Right. Well, what I was talking about is when you have more than two teams inside a compound operating.
Yeah.
That's when your shot shoots kind of change a little bit.
But outside of that, quick question. Outside of that, does it all really change? Because from a filthy civilian standpoint of view, it's a revolving door in the reality of it, right? If you're inside somewhere and shit happens and shit goes left, then you got to go right, or you got to go left harder, if that makes any sense. Like what you said, you like on a mill standpoint of view, you guys have kill, shoot, capture, kill, shoot, kill, whatever. Leo's standpoint of view is preservation of life. Grab who you got to fucking grab and get out. But outside,
I would have to agree with that because as far as CQB goes, nothing's ever absolute.
That's
If we're
what I'm
talking about just the basic principles of CQB, nothing is ever absolutely going to be absolute.
So part of that, going back to the training thing, you're going to enter a house before the first team that's in going to do the quick assessment as far as how the house is kind of laid out before they bring in another team. So a lot of that's either going to be a flow through to the next room kind of thing. That secondary team is going to come in. You're going to keep leapfrogging one another kind of thing. Or you're going to come in and be like, hey, this is this kind of a round robin or house where the rooms kind of flow around one another. And it's going to be a ground force commander, ground force sergeant major is going to be like, hey, we're going to take this in a clockwise motion so that way you don't have two teams coming back in on each other. But going back to that, we haven't even got into inner cordon, outer cordon, things like that, where you could potentially be shooting out a window, shooting through a wall, and hitting that security that's on the outside too, which is a whole nother animal kind of thing.
Right.
But yeah, just speaking of, I'm in the house. I only have to worry about these elements that are in the house with me. You're going to coordinate. You're going to train. So a lot of what you're doing, going through different shoot houses, doing glass houses, things like that. If you have intel on the house, how it's laid out, or have a general idea how it's laid out, you're going to set up your glass house to do that. And by glass house, I mean you're putting engineer tape on the ground and you're walking through what you think the house looks like.
Yeah, you have a layout.
Right.
So that way you.
I mean, a lot of times too, you know, when we talk about doing operations and stuff, chances are 99.99% of the time you have ISR up in the air.
Yeah, but the ISR doesn't show you what's inside the house.
Right.
Right. Well, I'm saying as far as being outside, you know, the things that you see outside of the compound tells you a lot of information on how the buildings are structured.
Yeah, but go ahead.
I was just going to say, to an extent, the other thing, going back to the surprise element, some of the more successful missions we had were inclement weather. You know, you may not be taking a bird in because they can't fly, but you're driving it, doing that offset there, and now you've got, you know, you're dealing with the elements, and you got rain and stuff like that you're dealing with, or whatever the case may be. But those were some of the more successful missions in going out and, you know, capturing people, things like that. That it allowed you to have a little bit extra surprise element to it, because they're not going to be sleeping on the roofs kind of thing like they do in the Middle East. They're not going to be, you know, out walking around because of the weather. They're going to be tucked up inside the house, things like that. So their early warning's gone. So your surprise element goes up.
Interesting thing came up, and I was supposed to send the video to Ray, but I don't remember sending it. It was Cabrini Green in Chicago in like the 90s, the early 90s, how they turned the housing projects in Chicago into this fortification. So when the police come, state troopers, everything, they couldn't get into it. No way. Like the bird, they had damn pigeons sending signals, everything. And this is like when they finally got in, it took them a week to just clear the residents for they done cut holes in apartments. It was like, God, it was like impossible to get in. And then when they got in, it was hard for them to get out.
Well, I would say something like that would probably be reminiscent of what you're seeing over in Ramadi and everything else, where you're actually going block to block, house to house, apartment to apartment, and clearing everything, where you have to actually hold territory.
I think the military just would have blew it up.
You know, once you clear it, you can't let it go, you know. So, but I mean, getting back to CQB, you know, when we start looking at the differences between how Leo and military operate, So when we start looking at like some of the different weapon systems and some of the gear, or like Chris had talked about, how do you get to the target and everything else, and how that plays a part of what you're doing, because through knowledge, and you can correct me on this, with law enforcement, once you go and serve a high risk warrant and everything else, you physically lock everything down, you own it, and you're going to own it until you're done, right? With the military, Byron, Hat Creek, Chris, and Dudley, you're going to go there, do what you got to do, and then you're trying to get the hell out of there.
You don't own, you don't own the building. You can't. It's impossible.
So
Yeah, but I think one of the things that you're missing, like, so that the speed part that comes from the constantly training, right? So you got to think like we're constantly running reps as a team, right? Even if it's your 4-man fire team, if it's your squad, whatever it is, you're running those repetitions over and over and over. So when you come across those situations where something goes left or something goes right, you've been through this with these people so many times, and you guys have such an understanding that, I mean, when bullets start flying, things change, but hopefully that you guys have that stuff ingrained. You've done it so many times, right? I mean, we do CQBs hours, just clearing the same room for hours and hours and hours. So that leads and that helps with that speed and, having that plan and knowing that, when you got that guy behind you and his leg up against you and you guys go, that how that everybody's going to react, and that really makes a difference. You know what I mean? So even if you don't necessarily know, I mean, you can't know everything. You can't know the room, can't know the layout all the time, but that really does help and go a long way,
You have to train so much. If you don't train enough to where you know what the other guy's thinking, you're just doing one-man CQB. A whole bunch of people are doing one-man CQB together. That's all that is, right?
I don't even think one-man CQB is really a thing, but it's just me.
If this is a building, this is my DJI mic thingy, by the way. If this is a building, we used to tell ourselves that we would turn the building on its edge and pour water down the front door. And you notice the water fills every room immediately. And that's how you do CQB, right? Like that. Now, it's a little less secure, right? But speed is our security. Does that make sense? Of course, I came from a different type of unit that, we trained for hostage rescue the whole time. And we were used for other missions because, there wasn't hostage rescue all the time to happen. If that makes sense. There were other missions. We just applied the same principles. Hostage rescue is the hardest of all of them. And if you could do it, turn that building on its side and pour water down it, you could do any of the others. But he's right. You have to do it constantly so what, if you're separated from another came in another door or another entrance, what they're doing. And a lot of times it is better that you don't know what it looks like on the inside, because you just train for CQB. If you try to orchestrate what's going on, all right, if we know what the building looks like, all right, you guys go into this room. When you get to there, we'll go to here, we'll go down the hallway. What if at point A, Murphy steps in? You know what I mean? So that's why we call it.
The enemy does get a vote.
Yeah, they got a vote. And we used to call it back in the day free flow CQB, right? I don't know what they call it now. It is what it is. But that's literally just turn the building on its edge, pour water down the front door, and watch it fill. It's that fast.
Yeah. Hey, so real quick, dude, now I was brought up a thing when Byron, you said something about one-man CQB. So what is everyone's thoughts on, one-man CQB? And not so much as a one-man room clearing, but a one-person or one individual CQB. Like, is that
surviving
a platypus?
It's a thing.
Is that a
It's
thing?
a thing. It is a thing. Yes. Emery Morgenstern of Prime Combat Training trains this with people a lot. Okay. So you're at home asleep, 2 a.m, got your CPAP mask on. You don't wear them. Fat guys just like me, right? You sling that mask off, and by the way, your kids are on the other side of the building, right? And you got to get to them because there's something happening in there. You got a one-man way your room through there, and he teaches.
Damn, how big is your house, bro?
Hey, even if it's a small home, you still got to get to them so you can secure them, right? So you need to know how to do. And he has a great technique. It's Prime Combat Training. Look it up. He's really good at it. And y'all know the tactical rifleman Carl Erickson. He trains that same stuff. He does one-man CQB. Another key to that is you should train your wife to do it also. So you double the amount of CQBers in the home.
Well,
That makes sense?
now that'd be a two-man. That'd be a two-man team.
Hence, I said now you have doubled the amount of CQBers in the home. You know,
Now it's for real CQB.
Exactly. So all I'm saying is, if you train her, you don't have to do one-man CQB. You can do two. But one man is hard. It is hard, and the speed of that depends on the situation. If it's just you in the home and you heard that crashing noise, then you could take your time doing what you got to do. But if you got kids on the other side of the home that you need to go secure, then there's a little bit of you got to do that a little quicker, and you got to figure out what rooms can I skip. Second, you can't secure yourself in one man CQB. So if you enter a room, guess what you got to do when you come out? You got to CQB your way out of it too. Same way, because there's nothing secure behind you. Does that make sense? That's the hard part about it.
I agree with that. I'm not taking nothing away from that. The only reason why I say nowadays is that there is no longer such thing as a one-man CQB is just because of the stigma that the term CQB has gotten over the years from people who has the idea of what it's about, but not really have ever practiced it. Someone might take
John Wick,
1,
baby.
2,
John
3,
Wick.
4, 5 classes, but you're not really there yet to the point where you could remember all the shapes, all of the room procedures, and principles, because the principles that I believe in, and as far as what I'm taught for CQB is, for one, having as many guns in the fight, right? Maximizing your room coverage, engaging your threats by priority, which is, people, your threats, hostile with a hostile intent, animals including, your unknowns, people that need to be positively identified, threats, friendlies, hostages, etc., and portals. Pretty much any places that people can walk into, so doors, windows, etc., and places. That's going to be your, places that people could hide, right? Another principle that I believe in is violence of action, which, yes, you could do that with a one-man CQB, right? Violence of action, that's expecting something to be there or moving with intent. Another one that you could do with one-man CQB is having that relative superiority, having that, I guess you could say, the element of surprise, I guess you could say, right? Now, for me, nowadays, in order to fulfill something as quote-unquote CQB, in my opinion, as I was taught, it must meet all those criteria.
I don't know, man. I kind of would disagree, because I would say it's just like we got SOLIC, right? Special operations, low intensity conflict, right? This guy sits up in Washington. He talks about these. But I heard Sergeant Major say, whenever someone's shooting at you, it's never low intensity. So I would say, if I'm driving my car and I'm going to get, going to get some chicken, because I like chicken, and I got to go to that part of town, and things kind of go left. If I start shooting, that I would say that's combat. Or if someone tries to rob me and they do good old vehicle interdiction, right? They, cut me off and do all this stuff. Once we start shooting, I would say that's combat. Once bullets start flying, and I would say no matter where it's at, it's close, and it's a battle. So again, I like you said, I think we get caught up on the spaces because I watch all these YouTube personalities with 1 million views and clicks and got all the cool guy gear and everything else. And man, they walk the walk and they talk the talk, and all they're doing is room clearing, room clearing, room clearing. But what about the other battle spaces? And I mean, I don't know. That's why we're kind of doing this to kind of say, all right, you know, this is what it is, and this is how it can happen. You know,
What's the range of CQB is what I want to fill out. So for something to consider
Before we get
CQB,
into that, Armel,
what is the range?
before we get into that, let me ask you guys something. Do you guys feel that CQB or CQC is exclusively for Mill and Leo?
No,
No.
absolutely not. I don't think so.
Absolutely not.
brother,
I
if someone
just wanna
starts shooting
know.
at you with a
They're
pistol,
just letters.
CQB.
They're just
Yeah,
letters,
no.
they're just letters for a technique. That's all it
Through a
is.
wall. I'm throwing a motherfucker through a wall. It is what it is at that point. I just wanted to see where everybody was at on this.
Corn chips and queso beers.
People are out of
I mean, at the end of it, I
Is
think
there a
that
range?
CQB
Is there a
just-
range when something is no longer CQB?
Well, and I would
That's-
say outside of your primary weapon, I mean, if you got to start dropping mortars on someone, you might be out of CQB distance. However, got to give it up to the Marines back in Fallujah. They was clearing town.
Raw, baby.
They hit that motherfucker with a tank. Did they or did they not? They took down, they like pancake it. They hit it with a tank. So I mean, at that point, now is it really an integrated arms, or is you just using all the tools at your disposal? Byron, Chris, how many times you guys called in JTAX to drop a JDAM on something?
I did not.
That's not what I heard.
Our particular unit did not require that help. I'm not bragging. I'm just saying we're doing shit in the middle of the night. We're hitting this target. We're getting out. We're not calling in target. Now, Chris, on the other hand, I don't know which way I'm pointing here, probably did that in his last deployment quite a bit, but we did not have to do that a whole lot at all, actually.
You know, I mean, so like,
Hey, Uncle Joe.
Yes, sir.
One quick question for y'all up there, right? I guess Gary too. Whenever you guys request for QRF, who comes to pick you guys up?
Ranger Regiment.
Bullshit.
Really?
Yep.
Oh God.
Crazy.
Turn
Bullshit. I'm
Yeah,
out
we
of
have-
here.
We had bat, but in when we were in the Horn of Africa, we had Marines as our QRF.
Hoorah.
Go ahead, Joe.
Can I get a hoorah, Gary?
I'll give you your little raw.
I mean, we didn't have to use them; we just had them.
Hey, everybody gets one, right?
That's not what I
Everybody gets
heard.
One, as Spider-Man would say. But no, I mean, seriously, at Dust, I guess it's like one of those things, and it depends on how comfortable you are or how uncomfortable you are with getting shot at, because like Jules said in Pulp Fiction, hey man, I hate to ruin your day. This ain't the first time I had a gun pointed at me. And then you at someone else, and the dude would be like, the dude from I'm going to get you suckers, start running and screaming and yelling. So I guess it's like all kind of relative. Chris?
I'll just say getting shot at is not fun, no matter
Comfortable for anybody. It's just how you handle it. It's like you got the people who freak the fuck out immediately, they freeze or run, and then you got the people who are like, well, this fucking sucks. We got to do something about this.
I'm the sucks guy. I tell people all the time. That's why I got out of the Marine Corps. When people start shooting at me, it's time for me to go. I was like, yeah, it's not fun anymore.
Yo, man. Have you guys ever been on the party end of
Sorry, I say it wasn't funny.
Yo, Dudley, I know you've been on the party end of a Dishka.
Yo,
Yo.
it just wasn't fun. That's all I'm gonna say.
The bark, insane.
Not fun.
I don't know about that stuff. I'm just saying, like, on the 3 rules of CQB, and my take on it from, like I said, just a shitbag civilian, surprise, speed, and violence of action just makes sense, right? So, like, surprises only work when they're in your favor. Outside of that, it's a fucky situation. Speed, kills most in everything you do. And then violence of action, if you're going to do it, you might as well commit to it, right?
Yeah.
Like that's just how I see it in my mind on how it works. And I think it's on the surface of it, it's super simple. And then it
Pretty
breaks
much it.
down. Yeah, it's super simple. There's not really much to it until you're doing it, and then that's when the door starts revolving. And it starts
Right. I
revolving.
mean, that's kind of at the end of the day, you know, when you train, you're not training to be slow. You train to be fast. That, in my opinion, is the whole point of why we train.
Well,
to get faster.
One of the things that, and I'm just speaking from looking at it from, let's look at it from the civilian end of the view of the microscope here. It's not, I don't think people realize, you know, you see on YouTube, you see these guys busting a room and they're shooting targets and it looks all cool and everything else.
Cool guys.
But until it is somebody on the other side of that door that's got a gun pointed back at you, do you ever get to that threshold? Do you think with a little bit of pause? You know, it feels really cool, and I'm sure it feels really good going through that door, and you feel like you're 10 feet tall and bulletproof, running through that portal and taking out all your targets, and you're, yay, pat me on the back now. But when you got somebody inside that room that shoots back at you as you're coming through that portal, that's going to make you have a little bit of pause when you get there. Now, these guys up top here, Byron and Chris, these two, I mean, obviously they've done way more than probably anybody on this panel. You know, much respect to both you guys.
Actually, I play Call of Duty, so
well, that don't count. You know, the stuff that they did, I'm sure they probably worked with their teams for a long time so that when they got to that threshold, there was no pause. They knew what the guy to their left and their right was going to do. They knew which way just by the way the guy was standing, you know, on which way he was going to go. You know, that I'm sure body motion and their just general way that they were acting, they knew exactly what their teammate was going to do. I mean, that's really what it boils down to. If you're going to do CQB, you better have dudes with you or dudettes that knows what they're doing, and they better be practicing, because if you don't, it's going to hurt.
Pipe hitters.
Yeah, that's dope, Pat Creek, and I like that you said that. And I probably may have seen like the most negative person, like that's like that shit is bullshit. I'll call everything bullshit. Everything I see is bullshit. That shit is bullshit. It ain't gonna work. This is what I say, and I always say this. Who are you using this on? So is this gonna be? Are you doing some goon shit? You just killing people or wiping it out? Because if you hit a real in the United States hard target, that shit ain't gonna work. But that's because I seen too much.
What do you mean?
You watch too many movies.
But Armel, why would you say that wouldn't work, man?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
The stuff that I see and you talking about, the shit you don't see is the shit that's gonna kill you.
Wait,
hold on. So
it's not in America since a lot of things happen in America. Hard government fortifications are not so easy.
Armel, if somebody comes to your house and blows your fucking door down to a point it looks like a box,
and then you blow the door down, Dustin.
And
this is how it works.
Hear me out. If somebody comes in your fucking house and knocks that door clean off the hinges, listen, man, you just set in America.
Hold on. Hey, hold on. Stop.
Let me spice it up a little bit, Joe.
No, you're not going to spice it up, man. You're not going
to. Man. You put me to sleep with this shit.
No, you're not.
Hey, Armel, go on your keyboard, hold Control, Alt, and F4.
Nah.
All right, so no, but this is the reality. You're saying in America, so like it doesn't have to be a house, right? Let's talk about a building. Let's talk about a steel door. It's 2024. You think they don't have shit to blow down the door?
Yeah.
The time you hear that in the processes, you're gonna have 4 dudes in your face.
All right. Hey, Dust, I appreciate that. I'm gonna unmute Armel, and I'm gonna give the floor to Byron and to Chris, and they can actually, if they want to, and then also Dudley, because all three guys, I don't know, Dude Knowledge, if you had any kinetic engagements, I believe I know definitely that Byron and Chris can actually talk about how someone would go to the house and Dude, not putting too much information out there, but I'm sure you've done some workups on to get into someone's house or fortifications and everything else. So if you guys can take that, we'll start off with you, Chris, then go to Byron, then go to Dude, and then go to Dudley.
Yo, I'm sorry, Armel's cracking me the fuck up
Yeah.
right now.
So yeah, we're not.
For a house, yeah, a
Excuse
house
me.
it works.
Excuse me.
For a house it works. Dudley, somebody coming to your job, can a CQB, how do you get down the corridor?
You talking about my day job?
Yeah, the day job. It's
No.
not happening. Thank you.
All right. All right.
But hold on.
Hold on. Stop.
It can
Armel,
happen,
man.
but it's very difficult.
Armel, stop. You're kind of living in this thing and everything else. And
I'm not living in this thing, but I'm trying to see the training that the civilians are doing.
All right, Chris. Go ahead.
But wait. Let me say one thing, Jova. So Armel, so check this out. So you're making that assumption of a regular civilian. So if all of us on this panel got together and we came to your house, you don't think we have the tools necessary to do what we need to do? Unmute them. You don't think we have the tools necessary to do what we do? We don't have the stuff to blow your door off the hinges and do that stuff? I guarantee you
It'd be over before you realize.
that you can put
I know. That's the problem I'm having with it, and I want y'all to understand this. Why would you use this against an average everyday dude?
Because sometimes the average everyday dude isn't as average as you think.
I mean, you on some goon shit.
Welcome to America, baby. This fucking
not a
country
goon, bro.
on goon shit.
All right. Hey, so Chris, if you don't mind kind of explaining, like let's just say a hardened target, like some of the things that could be used to take, not someone's 2-story condominium in suburbia, just
Right.
like without getting into too much details and everything else, but just some of the stuff, if you don't mind.
So a lot of that's going to go towards, if you have sniper teams, you're going to deploy them. They're going to send back any observation reports and stuff like that. They're going to take compositions of doors, how many windows, how high they are off the ground, things like that. If you don't have that, going to a house blind, like Byron said, not knowing what you're walking into is better than having an idea and prepping for it. And, it goes back to the old saying of everything's great. Plans are great until you get punched in the face. You fall back on it. But I know for me, sitting in the truck, whenever we roll up to a house, you had your breacher team or your breachers within your element. And depending on what your composition was, Afghanistan, it was dirt huts, metal gates to get in. And Iraq was the same thing, metal gates to get in. They were just attached to concrete block instead of 3-foot thick mud and stick walls. But breaching techniques all were different. Like Afghanistan, I would string along Bangalores to blow a hole through a wall, kind of thing. If I needed to gain access, a couple Bangalores would take down a good portion of a mud wall to get people into a compound, and then you still have to get into the house. Now the area that we were in, all the doors were about 3.5 feet high. So, me being 6'2", it was very difficult to get in. So that was kind of a pain. But Iraq, you ran into a lot of steel doors. I'm sure Byron can speak to this too. Water impulse charges are great. But you put a charge on
Water impulse.
Love them.
put a water impulse on a wood door, and the only thing you're going to do is blow.
IV bag.
Fucking IV bag, lactated ringers.
What do you need? And you're using that water to push through. You can use rubber strips and do them in segments with deck cord on them and use them as cutting charges for hinges. We had doorknob charges where it was with deck cord with the rubber.
Usually not.
But again, you're only blowing a door that opens out to you. If it opens into the room, you're going to shotgun it. And then it kind of falls back to, I didn't experience this, but we always had the idea of stumble across them, but if y'all aren't familiar with what a dead man is, you know, we got them at the shop on like the range where, you know, you've got hooks coming out of the door itself, and then you put a bar that goes all the way across the door jamb, and you're generally going to do that on a door that's going to open out, so you can't pull it open. Well, now you've got one more thing. You can defeat the hinges all day long, but until you defeat the dead man, you're still getting in. So we prepped for that because that was one of the TTPs, one of the things that, you know, we heard about. I never experienced it. Byron may be able to attest to it differently. But, you know, shotgun doors that open in, blow doors that open out. You need to defeat the hinges, you need to defeat the lock mechanism, that kind of thing. Composition is a big thing. What are you going to use to get into it? Because you want that speed. You don't want to throw a water impulse on a wood door and, you know, you're sitting there like, hey, here's John. You're just poking your head through. You know, that doesn't work. So have a little bit of foresight. Or a truck rack. We had charges.
What is going on?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there.
Somebody's kid's not happy.
Yeah, but you got flex linears, which were, you know, a flexible roll of deck cord, and a lot of it goes back to deck cord. You don't need C4 to blow up a door. It's cool to make a big hole in stuff. But deck cord does a lot of damage to a lot of doors. And there's things here and there that'll teach you how to make deck cord. Speak to that. But you can do a lot of damage with deck cord, whether you're trying to get in, break the hinges, you're trying to break the lock mechanism, something like that. You know, if you're trying to get into a wall, it's going to be C4. But then it goes back to what's the wall made of. Concrete block, C4 is going to do a lot of good. If it's a stick wall, like, you know, what's behind the brick on my house right now, C4 is going to blast a hole through the brick. I don't know what it's going to do to the friggin' 2x4s and drywall and, you know, the 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch, whatever it is, sheeting that's underneath it. You got plywood underneath there between the wall and studs, between the brick wall and studs there and stuff like that. So it's one of those things, like, if you want to know what it does, you need to start training for it. And that's one of the things that, you know, goes back to what Byron said. You're training all the time for every scenario you can possibly think of. And that's one of them. What's made of? You know, what area are you going into? Like, I've never been to Africa, but the pictures I've seen, you've got concrete buildings. And if you got in the rural areas, you're probably running into dirt. So it's kind of a mixture of, you know, Iraq, Afghanistan kind of thing.
That's a good segue. What about your tools? The tools that you use as far as weapon system?
Byron's going to address that issue, man. Hold on.
All right.
And then Dust.
What issue am I addressing? I'm sorry.
We were just talking about, you know, if you had to do a dynamic breach, if it.
Oh, yeah.
So, RAM, you know, how will we defeat some of these hardened structures of near peers and not the regular average guy that Armel was talking about, you know?
Now Chris hit 90% of them. There's a couple that we specialize in, like quickie saws and Broco torches, but there's also something that a lot of folks don't realize that we use a lot. That's surreptitious entry. Okay, that's entering a building and nobody knows you're entering this building, that kind of thing, or facility. That's where we go. We actually go to schools for lock picking and stuff like that, and all that kind of stuff. You know, it's not all about, you know, laying a flex linear diagonally across the door and, you know, and killing the family that's sleeping in the living room. Sometimes you have to, you know, sneak your way in, and then once you've made contact, that's where the three rules come in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's pretty cool. But that's definitely new stuff that is an advanced thing that we never did back in the day. So, like, what other stuff? The what? Because
You're old.
Yeah, I'm definitely old. So you guys did that? So the Marines are teaching you guys that lock picking? No. Right, exactly. So it's not just because I'm old. We don't do that stuff. Like, that's not what we do.
Hey, Dudley.
We're the last part. We're the violence of action part. That's what we specialize in. We don't do cool toys and stuff like that. Like, that's why I think that's interesting for sure.
Hey, that surreptitious entry where I'm from is called breaking and entering.
Right.
That's when the cops come and wake you up at 6 a.m. But that's pretty cool. I know, hey Dudley. I mean, in your experiences, you guys ever have to go like do a hard breach or anything like that, or everything was just
No, we're in different harbors. So like, I mean, we were primarily, like I said, we were kilo stuff. We trained a lot for CQB, but we did most of the hostage rescue stuff. Like we did the getting the people from the embassy in Bosnia, that kind of stuff. We did basic. We didn't really do a lot of things where we had to blow doors up and stuff like that. They don't trust us to do stuff like that. We're not, we're
Yeah,
blunt.
doors were already open.
Yeah, right. We don't do stuff like that. We didn't get to do any of that cool stuff.
Yeah, I didn't do any of that stuff either. I mean, basic everything that we did was airfield seizure and whatever buildings and whatever equipment that was there on the airfield, and that was it.
yeah.
I mean,
Shit, I don't know,
I
man.
didn't, if I start telling stories, I'm likely to go to jail. So I'm gonna just shut up and listen to you guys.
See, the
Simple
thing
as
with
that.
Hey, Dust, what you say as a dirty civilian? I just
Oh,
take an
filthy
8-pound
motherfucker.
mallet and hit the doorknob, and you'd be surprised at what
don't say
happens.
it. Don't admit to it. Don't admit.
That door looked like a box of spilled matches. That was simple.
Now,
Don't.
hey guys, we're coming up on the hour and 15 minutes. I don't know if you guys want to cut it here and try and get back and do another one, think of some stuff and everything else, and just kind of wrap it up. I know everyone has work tomorrow and all the good stuff.
I don't have to work. I'm retired.
Man, it must be nice.
Must be.
Man, it must be nice.
I just want to bring up that as cool as a job we have in the military, LEO, when they have to do this, it's a lot worse. It is a
would
lot
agree.
worse.
Absolutely.
We have the advantage of, you know what? Everybody there's got to die. I'm just going to back up and call in a JDAM or whatever. Or we're sitting on a mission, kill, capture. You know what? This person here looked at me funny, the whole 9 yards. Not in the LEO. That's a whole different ball of wax there.
Yeah,
And,
different rules of engagement, escalation of force. completely
yes,
different.
they hit the wrong house. They
It's a very real thing. That's
Yes,
actually one of the important
Yes.
things that we train on. Is memorizing certain things like that. I think Dust, you were there when we last did when we last hosted a CQB class with Indiana State Police SWAT and stuff. And it was funny because a lot of the Civ Div dudes that went out, because they like to learn too, when I was instructing, they kind of looked at me weird when I gave out specific addresses, times, and hey, it's a blue house with a red door, this and this and that. And before they actually went in to do the exercise, I would ask them, hey, just out of curiosity, where are you? He's like, I'm at the Mac Foundation. I'm like, no. Where are you? Like, what house are you at? And they just go blank. They're like, what? I'm like, earlier when you were being briefed, you received the address, who it is that you're looking for, how many unknowns to expect, et cetera, et cetera. What is the address? And they would have absolutely no idea. And it's not a joke, it's as funny as it sounds. It's really not a joke, because that shit happens more often that it's kind of scary, right? Because it should never happen. But unfortunately, that's one of the things that most civilians wouldn't understand.
Well, the
They don't need a high GP
ramifications,
score.
the ramifications for you is way different than it would be, because it's so visible.
Well, not
it's
just
prevalent.
that, So, in the military, a lot of times you use ATAC, right? In the Leo world, depending if you have to do a soft dynamic breach, you have to walk, and you could be dropped off 8, 9, 10 blocks away. You don't always get a free ride.
Really, Marine?
9 times out of 10, you're walking.
8-10 blocks, Marine. That's a long way.
Yeah. In the dark? Are you serious? Have you ever been to
Are
the
you
to the
scared?
city of Chicago?
Where you? Oh, are you? Never mind. Never mind. Go ahead.
Like, it doesn't sound a lot until you start talking about, crossing 15 different alleys in one block. I'm just saying.
Chicago crackheads are crazy.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying it's a real thing.
I know. Hey, again, I would like to thank everyone that joined us tonight. And if you guys want to do it again, just let us know, and we can talk about, some other things. Start talking about, some of the differences in weapon systems. Like what I'm going to use as a civilian versus what the military might use, what Leo might use, and some of the training that's afforded to me as a civilian versus how that differs and why it differs and stuff like that. But again, I like to thank everyone. And after we end, if you guys could just stick around. Anybody has any last minute things to say? Going once, going twice.
I want to say something. Marines lead the way. Just remember that.
Okay. Yeah.
I would say something, but y'all gonna tell me to shut up, so I'm gonna shut up. So.
Chill out, sailor.
All right. Hey, Dust, you have anything?
Run your gun. Get comfortable with your shit. Run your gun. Find a group of people to fuck around with.
Train.
Yeah.
Just shoot and get good with your shit. Get real good with your shit. Get so
Why
good.
not? Get nods.
Yeah.
Just
Dudley.
Yeah, get nods.
That's it. I'm saying thing. Just train. Doesn't matter. You don't have to have one of these super fancy platforms like Gary and Dude and Rob. Train with your stuff. Get familiar with your stuff.
What are
Wait,
you
are
talking
you
about?
saying the same thing to like Marines lead the way, or which one? Because nobody said that.
No. Hey, Armel, you got any parting shots, closing
Don't
words?
tell me to shut up, man. Leave this shit in peace.
Chris,
I want to be on here another hour.
Chris, you got anything?
No, I'm good here.
All right, Byron.
No, I'm good, bro.
All right, cool. Hey, everyone in the chat, thanks a lot.
Yo, drop the Byron and Chris's Instagram and social stuff so that we could follow them.
Yeah, shit. I'm gonna have to do that later.
Yeah, I'm horrible with any social media.
He had technical difficulties.